They laughed when you were kind. They'll choke when they see why. My dear chosen ones, let that quote settle in your chest like thunder rolling through the mountains. Because this message isn't a whisper, it's a wake-up call. You've been walking through a world that mistakes gentleness for weakness, and they've been betting against your spirit. But what they didn't know is that your silence was your weapon, your patience was your armor, and your kindness was the most calculated move the universe could ever make. You see, chosen one, power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it moves quietly, disguised in empathy, wrapped in sincerity. While others flex their temporary crowns, you've been out here building an empire of energy, brick by brick, heart by heart. You weren't chasing approval. You were becoming the storm that rewrites what strength looks like. You don't scream dominance. You radiate it. And here's the irony. The same people who once looked down on you will soon have to look up. They'll replay every moment they underestimated you, every time they rolled their eyes at your kindness, every time they mistook your patience for passivity. What they thought was your downfall was actually your disguise. You were never soft. You were strategic. You were collecting moments, not followers. You were testing hearts, not showing weakness. Maybe you've asked yourself, why does it feel like doing right always costs me? Because, my chosen one, you weren't designed for short-term wins. You were designed for timeless recognition. The world teaches noise, but your power is silence. A silence that rattles rooms long after you've left them. You've been walking through a battlefield disguised as a workday, giving your best when no one was clapping. And that's exactly why your energy terrifies small minds. They don't understand how someone so pure, so real, so grounded can still be that unstoppable. Picture this. While others were clawing for visibility, you were earning invisible equity, not in dollars, in influence, in integrity, in quiet credibility. You weren't climbing ladders, you were building foundations. And the universe took notes. Every ignored favor, every unseen good deed, every act of kindness that went unthanked, they're all receipts. And chosen one, those receipts are about to cash out in ways you can't yet imagine. They mocked your stillness, but they didn't know your stillness was the prelude to movement. Like the eye of a hurricane, you've been calm, but make no mistake, your impact is about to hit hard. The same ones who smirked at your simplicity will soon have to learn that simplicity is the sharpest sword in a world addicted to spectacle. Let's call it what it is. The enemy isn't people. It's ignorance. It's the arrogance that assumes kindness has no strategy. But you, my dear chosen one, have been flipping that narrative every single day without saying a word. You were showing that you can win without cruelty, lead without ego, and rise without noise. And that scares the system, because your power doesn't beg for validation. It creates it. So here's the truth they'll have to swallow. You didn't lose by being kind. You were positioning. You didn't get overlooked. You were getting observed. And while they were auditioning for attention, you were earning something they'll never understand. Respect that doesn't need to announce itself. Never mistake a gentle soul for an idle one, as the saying goes. Because when the kind decide to rise, they don't compete, they replace. Chosen one, the tables are already turning. Somewhere out there, a quiet observer, someone with influence, with reach, with resources, is still thinking about that one moment when your kindness hit different. You didn't know it then, but you just reminded power what humanity looks like. And that single moment, that forgotten act, is about to become the reason your entire life shifts. Stay grounded, stay gracious, but understand this, your softness was never your flaw. It was your secret code, and now the world's about to see exactly what that code unlocks. And before we dive in, listen closely. Chosen one, this part matters. If this message already feels like it's echoing something deep inside you, that's not coincidence, that's confirmation. You've felt the shift coming, haven't you? The moments where your kindness didn't make sense, but something told you to keep going anyway. That's the signal of alignment, the calm before everything flips in your favor. So pause right now, hit that like button if you can feel this truth in your bones. Subscribe if you're ready to watch your kindness cash out in ways no one saw coming. And drop a or 77 in the comments if you know this story is yours. Stay locked in, because what you're about to hear next will prove that your quiet goodness wasn't wasted. It was the opening move in a life-changing setup. Let's get into it. Number 1. Your kindness was a hidden signal the powerful couldn't ignore. Your kindness wasn't an accident, it was a hidden evaluation by power itself. They thought your kindness made you harmless. Wait until they realize it made you unforgettable. My dear chosen ones, this is where the story truly begins. Because what you thought was a small, forgettable act, a moment that barely grazed the timeline of your day, was actually a silent evaluation, and you passed it without even knowing there was a test. Let that sink in. Every time you offered help without calculation, every time you gave someone grace when you had every reason not to, you were being observed. Not by an audience hungry for drama, but by someone who moves in silence, someone whose decisions can rearrange destinies without announcing it. Power rarely wears a name tag. It moves quietly, blending into the ordinary, watching how people treat it when it looks like it has nothing to offer. You didn't notice them because you weren't searching for advantage. That's what separates you, chosen one. You weren't auditioning for approval or scanning faces for opportunity. You were just being you, real, raw, grounded. In a world full of polished masks, you showed up unfiltered, and that startled the system. While others were performing kindness as currency, you were giving it away freely, like air. And someone somewhere saw that and couldn't unsee it. Now, maybe you've asked yourself, was it even worth it? You gave, you helped, you showed up, and sometimes it felt like the world just shrugged. But here's the truth they won't tell you. Power is always watching in silence before it rewards in public. You thought you were helping a stranger, but you were really revealing your character to someone who'd been searching for authenticity in a sea of manipulation. They didn't need another person trying to impress them. They needed proof that sincerity still exists. And you, without even realizing it, became that proof. Think about it, chosen one. The very traits they said would slow you down, your patience, your empathy, your decency, are the exact ones that made the right person stop and pay attention. They laughed when you held the door, when you gave the compliment, when you shared without asking for credit. But that one small moment, it hit differently. It wasn't your money, your looks, or your status that stood out. It was your energy, that quiet frequency that says, I don't need to pretend to be valuable, I already am. And let's be honest, most people wouldn't have passed that moment. They would have sized the person up, judged by appearance, dismissed what didn't look profitable, but not you. You treated everyone with the same dignity. That's what shook them. Because when power meets authenticity, it remembers. So no, your kindness wasn't random. It was strategic. Not by you, but by life itself. It placed you in the right scene at the right time, not to test your patience, but to reveal your integrity. You didn't just help someone, you reminded power what real humanity looks like. And chosen one, that single moment didn't fade into the background, it marked you. Your name may not have been spoken aloud yet, but trust me, it's been written down in places that matter. They'll say it was luck when your moment arrives, but you'll know the truth. It wasn't luck, it was recognition. Number 2, you didn't just help a stranger, you reignited someone's faith in humanity. You didn't save a billionaire, you revived a soul that had forgotten how to feel. They thought their money could buy everything until your kindness gave them what money never could. My dear chosen ones, this part runs deeper than the surface ever shows, because what you did wasn't just a moment of generosity. It was an intervention, a quiet rescue mission with no audience, no announcement, and no agenda. You didn't just hand out kindness, you handed someone back their will to believe the person standing in front of you that day, the one you helped without a second thought, looked like they had it all. The designer life, the status people crave, the kind of wealth that others call freedom. But behind that polished calm was a storm no one could see. They were drowning, not in failure, but in emptiness, surrounded by people, yet starving for authenticity. Imagine living in a world where every smile costs something, every conversation comes with strings, every act of care feels like a business transaction. That's what their reality had become. So they shut down, slowly, quietly. They stopped answering calls, stopped trusting intentions, stopped believing that kindness existed without a receipt attached. And then, out of nowhere, you. No filters, no performance, just raw, effortless decency. You spoke to them like a human being, not a headline. You looked them in the eyes without seeing a dollar sign. You listened, not to gain, but to understand. And that hit them like lightning. It cracked through years of numbness, through the armor they'd built to keep the world out. For the first time in a long time, they felt something real, something that didn't come with an agenda. And maybe you didn't notice it, chosen one, but that single moment shifted everything. You didn't just change their mood, you interrupted their trajectory. They were about to disappear, to walk away from the generosity that had once defined them, to stop believing in people altogether. But your kindness, your simple, uncalculated humanity, made them pause. You reminded them that integrity isn't extinct, it's just rare. That sincerity isn't weakness, it's strength disguised as softness. They went home that day replaying your words, your tone, your energy. It lingered in their mind, like the echo of a song they couldn't stop hearing. It wasn't grand or loud, it was pure, and that made it unforgettable. They realized that in a world obsessed with taking, you gave. And that realization, it changed something fundamental inside them. They didn't just feel grateful, they felt alive again. Here's the part no one tells you, chosen one. People with real power aren't moved by wealth, but by truth. And you, without trying, embodied the one thing their world had forgotten. Authenticity. You didn't stroke their ego or seek validation. You didn't see what they owned. You saw who they were underneath it all. And that's something even billionaires can't buy. So no, you didn't just help a rich stranger. You rescued a disillusioned heart. You became the reminder that not everyone wants something in return. That kindness can still exist in its purest form. They won't forget that, and they won't forget you. Because what you gave wasn't charity, it was humanity. And when a soul that powerful gets reminded of what's real, the ripple effect reaches far beyond what you can see. Chosen one, that single act was not random. It was a spark that reignited someone's faith in people. And now that flame is burning again because of you. And trust me, when power feels gratitude, it responds. You didn't just save their day. You revived their belief in goodness, and that kind of moment doesn't fade. It transforms. Number 3, that small gesture you forgot about quietly shifted an entire timeline. You didn't just change a moment, you rewired an entire timeline. They thought it was a small act. What they didn't know was that you just pulled the future off its original track. My dear chosen ones, let's be real. You've been taught to believe that only big moves change lives. That it takes a stage, a title, or a massive platform to shift reality. But here's the secret, most people will never understand. Sometimes, one quiet act from the right soul rewrites everything. You didn't just hold a door, offer a hand, or share a word. You rerouted a chain of events. You bent what was into what could be. You turned an ordinary moment into a turning point. That's the power you carry, chosen one. You don't just exist, you influence. The energy that moves through you doesn't just land and fade. it lingers, rearranges, and multiplies. When you act from sincerity, the world around you adjusts to match your frequency. What you thought was a single act of kindness was actually the opening scene of a much larger story, one that's still unfolding behind the curtain. You see, energy isn't about effort, it's about intention, and yours has always been clean. No agenda, no calculation, no performance. You gave because it's who you are, not because you expected something in return. That's what makes your actions so dangerous to the shallow and so magnetic to the powerful. You operate at a level most people can't even detect, a frequency where authenticity becomes the loudest form of influence. Maybe you've questioned it. How could something that small matter? Because you've been conditioned to equate value with visibility. But your greatest moves were never meant to be seen. They were meant to be felt. That billionaire you helped, they may have walked away quietly, but internally, everything shifted. You interrupted a cold cycle, their disillusionment, their isolation, their silent retreat from humanity. You sparked something in them that logic can't explain. And now, as they rebuild that belief, your energy is still echoing in their decisions. That's what happens when a chosen one steps into someone's path. It's not just a meeting, it's a collision of timelines. The moment your kindness touched their life, it sent out a ripple, and those ripples are still expanding. What felt like nothing to you became the plot twist they didn't see coming. You may not have seen the results yet, but trust this. The universe runs on delayed reactions, not empty promises. And now, that ripple is circling back. You triggered a transformation, and the laws of balance have to respond. Your reward isn't charity, it's the natural recoil of impact. The same way gravity pulls what's thrown, energy returns what's given. Only this time it's amplified. Chosen one, you didn't just help a person, you reprogrammed a reality. You weren't trying to create change, but your frequency demanded it. You shifted a dark path into a brighter one, and the echo of that moment is finally reaching you. This isn't luck, this isn't coincidence, this is cause and effect on a cosmic scale. The world is about to show you what happens when genuine kindness meets unshakable alignment. Number 4. You shattered the myth that authenticity has a price tag. You shattered the illusion that everything has a price. They thought everything could be bought until they met someone who couldn't be sold. My dear chosen ones, this is the part that rattled the system. You didn't walk into the room trying to prove anything, yet your presence alone rewrote the rules. The elite, the power players, the ones who live behind velvet ropes and invisible walls, are used to every interaction being a transaction. In their world, smiles come with fine print. Loyalty is leased, and kindness is just a sales pitch in disguise. They navigate a reality where everything, even sincerity, has an invoice attached. But then you showed up, and you didn't want a thing. That shook them more than you'll ever know. You didn't flatter them. You didn't chase proximity or validation. You didn't try to earn attention or climb ladders. You just showed up as yourself, grounded, open, real, and that broke their algorithm. They couldn't process it because they're programmed to expect angles. Everyone around them plays the game, say what sounds good, act impressed, position for favor. But you, chosen one, you refused to play. You treated them like a human, not a headline. And that's power in its purest form. Understand this. When people who have everything meet someone who wants nothing, it disarms them. It strips away their armor and forces them to look at what they've lost, chasing all that they gained. They've met thousands of faces, shaken hands with millions in influence, but rarely encounter authenticity. That's why your energy hit different. You didn't need their validation to feel valuable. You carried your worth quietly, and that confidence without arrogance. That's rare air. That's the kind of presence money can't imitate. and they felt it instantly. Your energy carried something timeless, not old-fashioned, but uncorrupted. It reminded them of a time before the performance, before the noise, before the trade-offs. You didn't have to announce your purity. It radiated. You didn't need to speak about your integrity. It was in your tone, your eyes, your stillness. While others bend themselves into shapes to fit in, you simply existed, unbent, unbothered, undeniable. That simplicity became your signature. You didn't even realize the ripple you caused. Somewhere in that room, someone powerful paused. Not because you begged for a moment, but because you made them feel one. You reminded them what it's like to be seen without suspicion. You reminded them that real connection still exists, and it can't be purchased, traded, or replicated. In a world obsessed with possession, your authenticity became their disruption. Now they can't stop thinking about you, not in a romantic way, in a respect way, because while they can buy beauty, charm, and access, they can't buy the frequency you walk in. It's rare, it's grounded, and it's magnetic. You didn't audition for influence. Your spirit simply demanded it. So remember this, chosen one, your kindness didn't make you soft. It made you unforgettable. Your lack of agenda wasn't weakness. It was dominance in its quietest form. You didn't sell your soul to be noticed. And that's exactly why power is beginning to notice you. You didn't just prove purity still exists. You became living evidence that authenticity still wins in a world that's forgotten what it looks like. Number 5. Your energy spoke volumes before you ever said a word. Your presence spoke louder than any introduction ever could. They tried to forget your name, but your energy kept walking back into the room. My dear chosen ones, this one runs deep, because we're talking about the kind of presence that doesn't need volume to make noise. You know exactly what I mean. That quiet strength you carry, the one that unsettles the room before you even open your mouth. You've probably noticed it. The way people pause for half a second when you walk by. They can't explain it, but something in their instincts knows you're not built like the rest. You don't beg for space. The room just rearranges itself around you. Your energy isn't loud, it's magnetic. It doesn't scream, "Look at me." It whispers, "Remember me." That's what hit them hardest, especially the ones who thought they'd seen it all. The billionaire you crossed paths with. They've met everyone. The networkers, the flatterers, the ones who come polished but hollow. They can smell performance from across the table. But then there was you. No pitch, no agenda, no hidden motive. Just pure presence. You didn't enter their space. You shifted it. And let's be honest, chosen one, that power didn't come from an easy life. That frequency they felt wasn't manufactured in comfort. It was forged in the fire of endurance. It came from nights where you doubted your worth but showed up anyway. From heartbreaks that could have hardened you but instead refined you. From battles no one saw, where you chose self-respect over revenge. That's why your energy feels different. It carries truth. And truth can't be imitated. You weren't chasing validation that day. You were simply existing, and your existence alone was enough to expose what's real and what's fake. That's why they froze for a second. That's why they couldn't look away. You reminded them of something they'd forgotten: peace. In your silence, they heard honesty. In your stillness, they felt safety. You didn't need to sell them on who you are. Your vibration did the talking. It said, "I've seen chaos, but I'm not ruled by it. I've been broken, but I'm not defined by it." And here's what they'll never admit. Your calm shook them more than any confrontation could. Because in a world obsessed with power plays, you didn't have to fight for respect. You embodied it. You showed them that confidence doesn't mean dominance. It means clarity. It means knowing exactly who you are and not needing external permission to exist in that truth. They might have tried to brush it off, tell themselves it was just a coincidence, but energy doesn't lie. Days later, they still remembered your presence, even if they forgot your name. It lingered in their thoughts like a song they couldn't stop humming. That's the mark of someone real. You don't just leave impressions, you leave imprints. So, chosen one, understand this. Your aura is your introduction. Your silence is your signature. The world may not always clap for authenticity, but power recognizes power, especially when it's quiet. The billionaire didn't just meet you, they felt you. And in their world, where everyone's acting, you were the one who reminded them what truth feels like. That's not just energy, that's impact. You weren't just felt, you were etched into their frequency. Number 6. You made someone at the top rethink everything they thought mattered. You made a powerful soul rethink their entire blueprint. They were ready to walk away from everything until your light reminded them what purpose feels like. My dear chosen ones, this one cuts deep because it shows just how much weight your energy truly carries. You have no idea how close someone was to giving up. Not on money, not on success, but on meaning. They had built everything the world said mattered. Wealth, recognition, status, applause. Yet behind the calm expression and the polished schedule, they were running on empty. And then, out of nowhere, you appeared. No fanfare, no agenda, no mask. Just your natural, grounded self. A reminder that not everyone wants something. Some people just give. And that moment hit like lightning. You didn't even realize what was happening. You thought it was just another interaction, maybe a quick smile, a helping hand, a few words of warmth that cost you nothing but to them. It was oxygen. It was the first real thing they had felt in months, maybe years. You didn't know that behind that calm voice and simple thank you was a person who had quietly decided they were done. Done caring, done giving, done believing in the goodness of people. You walked right into their storm and didn't even know it. And your presence, chosen one, cracked something open that all the luxury in the world couldn't reach. They weren't looking for advice. They didn't need saving. They needed reminding that sincerity still exists, that people still move from the heart, that not every connection has a transaction hiding behind it, and you, without even trying, became that reminder. The way you looked them in the eye, the way your tone carried no judgment, no calculation. It shook them, because when you've lived in a world where everyone wants something from you, authenticity feels like a miracle. Maybe you've wondered, what's the point of being kind when it feels like no one notices? This is the point. You didn't just change someone's mood, you recalibrated their direction. They were ready to close the book on their purpose, but your presence made them reread the last chapter and realize the story wasn't finished. That small human moment reignited a fire they thought had burned out. You made them ask themselves, what if this isn't the end? What if I've still got something left to give? And that's the quiet power of being chosen. You move through rooms, unaware that your very existence rewires someone else's trajectory. You didn't hand them a new dream. You reminded them why they started dreaming in the first place. You didn't rebuild their empire. You reawakened the soul behind it. So understand this. Your kindness didn't just touch a life. It redirected one. That billionaire, that powerful soul, is now seeing the world through a new lens, one you helped clean simply by being real. You didn't speak to their status, you spoke to their humanity, and that, chosen one, is a force no amount of money can imitate. They were ready to disappear, but you made them remember why they showed up in the first place. And somewhere, right now, they're sitting in quiet reflection, not just thinking about what you said, but who you were. The moment they met you, the plan changed. The contract was rewritten, because your authenticity didn't just save a day, it revived a destiny. Number 7. You were the only one who saw the human, not the status. You were the only one who saw the human, not the price tag. They measured everything in dollars until they met someone who couldn't be bought. My dear chosen ones, this is where your story stands apart from the noise. In a world where people treat relationships like investments and kindness like currency, you did something that completely broke the system. You saw a person instead of a profit. You didn't care about their status, their power, or their last name. You didn't tilt your voice or fix your posture to impress. You just showed up as yourself, grounded, genuine, untouched by the hunger for validation. And that shook someone who'd seen it all. The truth is, chosen one, the person you crossed paths with wasn't just another stranger. They were a fortress, armored by wealth, surrounded by people who saw them as opportunity. Every interaction they had was layered with motive. Compliments came with invoices. Smiles were masks hiding transactions. Even friendship had fine print written in invisible ink. But then you appeared. No script, no angle, no expectations. Just presence. Just realness. And that caught them off guard. See, people like that billionaire aren't easily impressed. They've been to every room, heard every pitch, bought every promise. But what they rarely encounter is truth. That quiet, unshakable authenticity that doesn't demand to be noticed, yet can't be ignored. You didn't chase, you didn't flatter, you didn't sell yourself. You simply were. And that stillness, that self-contained confidence, did more damage to their walls than any charm could have. They waited for the ask. They waited for the moment you'd reveal the real reason you were being kind, because in their world, everything has a hidden cost, but it never came. Your silence became the loudest statement they'd heard in years. It said, "I see you, not your status." And that kind of recognition is something money can't manufacture. You didn't just give them kindness, you gave them something rarer, normalcy. You reminded them that they were still human underneath the weight of their fortune, that they could still be valued without a price tag. It startled them, not because they didn't understand it, but because they'd forgotten how it felt. For someone with everything, that small moment was everything. Chosen one, understand this. Your lack of agenda became your power. The same energy others mocked as naive became the one thing that disarmed the untouchable. You carry a frequency that doesn't beg to be noticed. It commands it by being pure, consistent, and unapologetically real. You don't need to perform. Your presence alone is enough. That's what makes you unforgettable. While the world trains people to calculate kindness like profit margins, you move differently. You give without losing. You connect without expecting. You show up without pretending. That's your signature, your rare code. And it left a mark on someone who thought nothing could move them anymore. They won't admit it out loud, but they're changed. Because you, chosen one, showed them that humanity still exists in a world where everything's for sale. You didn't treat them like a wallet, you treated them like a soul. And now, every time they think of authenticity, your face flashes in their mind. Not because you wanted something, but because you didn't. That's why they can't forget you. That's why the next chapter of your life is already in motion. You were never chasing money, you were attracting meaning. And that, chosen one, is what made you priceless. Number 8. They mocked your softness, while the real gatekeeper took notes. They mocked your softness, not knowing. It was the quiet power that would rewrite the game. They called you too soft. Funny how softness is the only thing that can bend steel without breaking. My dear chosen ones, this is the part they never saw coming. The twist in your story that makes the critics choke on their own words. They laughed at your kindness, didn't they? They rolled their eyes when you forgave too easily, when you still showed up for people who wouldn't have done the same for you. They labeled your empathy as weakness because they couldn't imagine strength existing without cruelty. But what they didn't realize was that while they were perfecting manipulation, you were mastering restraint. While they were strategizing their way into rooms, you were being studied by someone who already owned the building. Chosen one, the system thrives on noise. on arrogance, on false confidence, on people willing to trade humanity for validation. You didn't play that game. You didn't beg to sit at their tables or learn their politics. You simply moved with quiet consistency, with integrity they couldn't imitate. And that consistency was your signal. The frequency that reached someone at the top who had seen every trick, every faker, every opportunist, and was tired of all of it. That person wasn't scrolling through filters. They were scanning for truth. And you, my chosen one, radiated it effortlessly. Maybe you've wondered why the loudest, most manipulative ones seem to win. Why being decent feels like walking uphill in a storm. It's because the real gatekeepers, the ones who don't need attention to have influence, are watching in silence. They're not impressed by performance. They're measuring authenticity under pressure. When you kept your composure while being underestimated, when you gave your best without applause, when you refused to match someone's cruelty, you were proving something powerful, that your character doesn't shift with circumstance. And that's rare currency in a world running on counterfeit energy. You didn't know it, but your patience was being documented. Every time you took the high road, it was noted. Every moment you stayed kind when bitterness would have been easier was logged. While others were auditioning for approval, you were building trust with someone who has the power to change everything. Not because you performed, but because you didn't. You stayed real when faking it would have been profitable. That's what made you unforgettable. Here's the irony that burns your doubters the most. The same trait they mocked you for is now your ticket in. Your calm, your compassion, your refusal to play dirty. That's the exact energy the system can't reproduce. You weren't competing with them. You were outlasting them. And now, the invitation they've been scheming for, it's being printed with your name on it. While they were chasing shortcuts, the real gatekeeper was quietly preparing your entrance. You weren't meant to claw your way in. You were meant to be called in. So let them talk. Let them whisper about how you got lucky. You and I both know it wasn't luck. It was alignment. It was every soft choice, every kind decision, every moment of restraint stacking quietly in your favor. You didn't fold, you didn't fake, and now the world's about to see what happens when someone stays kind long enough for their integrity to become undeniable. They mocked your softness. Now they'll have to watch it. Open doors steel could never break down. Number 9. What you thought was ordinary was actually a silent evaluation. They were testing you the entire time, and you were never supposed to see it coming. The real ones don't get tested with applause. They get tested with silence. My dear chosen ones, this is where most people fail the lesson and never even realize it. They think tests come with warning signs, obvious challenges, or clear instructions. But you were tested in plain sight. You didn't walk into an exam room. You walked into a moment that looked ordinary. A stranger, a co-worker, a passing interaction. Nothing special on the surface but hidden underneath. A full evaluation of your character. The person standing before you wasn't just anyone. They were a gate disguised as a moment, a silent observer wrapped in humility, someone who wanted to know who you really are when you think no one important is watching. And that's the secret, chosen one. You weren't supposed to know. That was the point. Power never announces itself when it's watching. The real ones, the billionaires, the gatekeepers, the decision makers, they move in silence because they've learned that pretense disappears when attention does. They wanted to see how you move when the spotlight isn't on you, when there's no reason to be kind except that it's in your nature, when you think the moment doesn't matter, but it always does. You didn't pass because you performed well, you passed because you were genuine. You didn't switch tones based on titles or appearances. You didn't withhold kindness from those who couldn't benefit you. You gave the same respect to the person in sneakers that you'd give to someone in a suit. That's what marked you. You didn't do it for points. You did it because that's just who you are, real, steady, and solid, even when nobody's looking. Do you know how rare that is, chosen one? In a world where everyone's curating an image, you showed authenticity without even trying. You didn't bend for validation or fake humility for praise. You gave without keeping score. That's what shook them. That's what made the quiet observers take notice. Because they weren't looking for another networker or charmer. They were looking for someone who could be trusted with more influence, more resources, more access, without losing themselves. This was never about impressing anyone. It was about proving that your core doesn't shift under pressure, that you can walk into any room, any situation, and still be you. You didn't fold when it would have been easier to fake it. You didn't get louder to prove your worth. You just kept moving in truth. And that quiet consistency, that's what power respects most. The test is over now. The silence is ending. The people who were quietly watching, the ones you thought were just passing through your story, are about to reveal themselves. They've seen enough to make a decision, and that decision is about you. You're not about to be rewarded for pretending. You're about to be recognized for being real. So when those doors start opening, don't act surprised. This isn't luck. It's confirmation. You didn't stumble into opportunity. You earned it in moments nobody else valued. You passed the test you didn't even know you were taking. And now, chosen one, the quiet rooms where your name's been whispered are about to speak it out loud. Number 10. They tried to move on, but your presence kept echoing back. They tried to erase you, but you became the memory that wouldn't die. They thought they buried you, chosen one. They didn't realize you were a seed. My dear chosen ones, this is the part they never saw coming. They thought distance would dissolve your impact, that silence would make you disappear. They believed if they ignored you long enough, your presence would fade like an old photograph. But you can't erase real energy. You can't mute authenticity. You can't forget someone who never performed, only existed in truth. What they didn't realize is that your absence was louder than their entire circle combined. You became the echo they can't escape, the thought that interrupts their comfort, the name that drifts through their mind when everything else goes quiet. See, the powerful often think they can control what sticks and what fades. They curate relationships, build walls of distraction, fill their lives with noise and luxury to keep their minds from feeling too much. But when someone like you walks through their world, calm, grounded, and completely unbothered by status, it shakes their structure. You didn't try to impress them, you simply mirrored back everything they'd lost: integrity, simplicity, truth. And once someone has seen that reflection, it burns itself into their awareness. They might have walked away thinking they could replace you with something easier, something more predictable, something that doesn't make them question themselves, but it didn't work, did it? Every time they tried to forget, life threw reminders in their face. A phrase you once said, the energy you carried, a random act of kindness that felt familiar. All tiny whispers saying, you're not done with this connection yet. That's what happens when a chosen one crosses paths with someone who's forgotten what authenticity feels like. You don't just leave memories, you leave imprints. Your presence gets woven into the rhythm of their thoughts, tucked inside the cracks of their conscience. You reminded them what real connection feels like, unfiltered, non-transactional, pure. They couldn't understand it then, but now it haunts them in the quiet moments between their achievements. And I know what you're thinking, chosen one. If they didn't value it before, why should I care now? The answer is simple. You don't need to chase what's already magnetized to your frequency. You never had to run after acknowledgement. Your energy does the calling. When something real is placed in someone's path, it doesn't matter how far they run, they'll loop back to it. Not because of guilt or nostalgia, but because truth is gravitational. So when they come back, and they will, Understand it's not by coincidence. It's not pity or curiosity. It's because they finally realized what they tried to suppress was the one thing their world was missing. You, the one person who didn't want their power, who didn't need their validation, who simply saw them, the human beneath the status. Chosen one, you don't chase, you attract. You don't force, you resonate. That's why no matter how far they go, life keeps rerouting them back to your energy. You were never meant to fade into the background. You were meant to be the reminder, the proof that real still exists. And now the door that once closed on you isn't just reopening, it's unlocking from the inside. Because what you carry can't be forgotten, replicated, or replaced. It demands recognition. Number 11, the recognition coming your way will shake those who doubted you. Your rise will be the shock they never saw coming. They called you soft until your silence started making noise louder than their ego. My dear chosen ones, this is the moment they thought would never arrive. The moment where everything they mocked you for becomes the very reason you stand taller than them. You've walked through seasons where being kind cost you opportunities, where staying true to your character felt like walking barefoot through glass. They underestimated you because they measured you through their own shallow metrics. They couldn't comprehend that integrity, patience, and grace could ever become a weapon. But oh, they're about to learn. Your quiet strength was never weakness. It was strategy. They thought they were getting away with using you. They thought they were winning when they dismissed your efforts, laughed at your humility, or treated your empathy like cheap currency. What they didn't realize was that every betrayal was being recorded, not in some mystical book, but in the unfolding equation of cause and effect that never misses. Every time they took advantage, every time they overlooked you, every time they sneered at your softness, life kept the receipt. And now, chosen one, the bill is coming due. Your breakthrough isn't coming in whispers, it's coming like a detonation. The same people who once pitied you will blink in disbelief as your name begins to circulate in rooms they fought to keep you out of. To them, it will look like luck, coincidence, or an overnight miracle. But you'll know the truth. You didn't skip the process. You endured it. You didn't cheat the system. You outlasted it. That billionaire you helped, that quiet observer who saw your genuine humanity when everyone else was performing, they haven't forgotten. People with power don't forget sincerity, they crave it. You reach them on a level money can't touch, and now they're moving pieces behind the scenes in your favor. Not out of pity, but out of respect. They recognize something in you they can't find in their world of masks. Authenticity. That's the currency that never loses value. And here's what's going to sting your doubters the most. Your reward won't come from any of them. It won't come through their approval, their apology, or their handouts. It'll come from places they can't influence, from sources they can't manipulate. You'll rise through channels they never even knew existed, and when it happens, it'll offend them. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you did everything right. They'll call it unfair. They'll say you got lucky, but deep down, they'll know it's justice. You didn't chase revenge. You attracted recognition. Your name will be mentioned in circles that used to ignore you, and your elevation will feel like poetic balance. You didn't just survive what they did to you. You turned it into momentum. So, chosen one, let them whisper. Let them scramble for explanations. Let them taste the bitterness of realizing they played a long game against someone who wasn't even playing the same sport. Because your win won't just be success. It'll be symbolism. It'll remind the world that kindness doesn't lose, it accumulates. And when it finally breaks through, it breaks loud. Stay grounded, don't gloat, just rise. Because the greatest revenge was never payback. It was proving that the same softness they mocked was the foundation of your empire. And now, chosen one, we've reached the moment where everything comes full circle. You understand it now. Your kindness was never wasted, it was invested. Every time you stayed true when others turned cold, you were stacking invisible rewards. Every time you acted with heart in a world built on ego, you were shifting the balance. That quiet act, that single moment, set everything in motion. What's coming next isn't luck, it's alignment. So if this message resonated deep in your chest, if you felt that pulse of recognition in your gut, that's your confirmation. Hit that like button if you know your breakthrough is already forming behind the scenes. Subscribe if you're ready to keep walking this path of purpose and power with the rest of us. And drop the number 77 in the comments to declare it. Your kindness is about to pay off big time. Share this with another chosen one who needs to remember their worth, because this movement isn't about ego, it's about awakening. Stay patient, stay grounded, and stay real. Your season of quiet building is ending. The era of recognition has begun.